Hey there, welcome to the Journey of Teresa. I'm Teresa. Here, our focus is personal growth and self-care. Today, we're getting back into the journey of our emotions. This is part 2. In part 1, the focus was understanding emotional awareness, and that is in the description. That link is there, so be sure and check that out. Today, in part 2, our focus is how to identify our emotions. Emotional awareness is something that many of us may not be familiar with because we didn't grow up being taught explicitly about our emotions. We were not taught to recognize them, identify them, express them. Actually, we have been taught or conditioned to suppress emotions and dismiss them. But here we unlearn, relearn, and grow. So we're going to get into talking about how to identify our emotions. Understanding our emotions starts with identifying them. And as I mentioned earlier, that can be challenging if you are unfamiliar just with your internal emotional state because you've never really learned that, and that's okay. Most importantly, I want you to understand that emotions are not good or bad. Say it with me.
Emotions are not good or bad.
Emotions serve as our inner compass, our inner GPS. They're indicators for us. And unfortunately, many of us have learned to suppress or dismiss that indicator. Think of a time when possibly you were driving and an indicator came on in your car. It's a warning sign. It's indicating to check something out. And what if you continue to drive? You ignore that warning sign. One day you may end up with a flat tire because you said you need some air, or you dismissed looking under the hood or just checking something out. So now you're on the side of the road with smoke coming from under your hood. Think of your emotions like that. They're an indicator. They're a warning, like, hey, just check this out. Emotions have a job. Emotions guide our thoughts. Emotions guide our actions and behaviors. Emotions guide our interactions with the world around us, whether that's at home with our loved ones, our children, our friends, in the workplace with colleagues, or as you just go throughout your day, wherever there are people, our emotions guide us and they're indicators for us to adhere to listen to. Our body speaks to us through our emotions. We simply have to listen and respond appropriately for the situation. When we pay attention to what our emotions are telling us, the messages our emotions are giving us, we're able to make better choices in the moment, within the circumstance, or sometimes our emotions let us know that in this moment, you need to not respond, take time to think through consequences, and respond later. When you are able to name your emotions, you gain a bit more clarity and insight about your internal emotional state. And many of us just go throughout the world day to day without any consideration to our emotional state. Before you can identify your feelings, you have to learn to even acknowledge your feelings and emotions. Through practice and self-reflection, you are then able to learn and become in tune with your emotions. And as you become in tune, you then are able to understand what those underlying messages are. Because remember, your emotions are an indicator. So there's an underlying message of what's really going on. While there are many emotions, there are about 5 primary emotions. You have happy, sad, anger, fear, and shame. All of our other emotions are complex blends of these primary emotions. For example, one day I was experiencing a situation and I'm thinking, I am so mad. But with quick reflection, I realized I wasn't really mad. I was just frustrated in the moment. So you have those 5 primary emotions, and then the other complex emotions extend from it. So that frustration is an extension of anger, but it wasn't intense like anger or anything to that extent, just frustration. I want to share with you 3 practical strategies to help you learn to begin this process of identifying your emotions. The first strategy to identify your emotions is a body scan. This involves paying attention and being in tune with your body. Remember, I stated earlier, our emotions are speaking to us through our body. There are physical cues of our body speaking to us. And as you begin to practice being very cognizant of how your body feels, you'll get in tune and be able to identify when you need to take a moment to pay attention to this indicator, which is your emotions, letting you know, check this out. Think of what your body feels. And this may be challenging because some of us have simply taken this on and it's a part of us. Do you ever get that tension in your neck or headache, a feeling in the pit of your stomach, your lower back? Those are your emotions speaking to you. Many of us chalk it up and say, I'm stressed. Those are symptoms of stress, but those symptoms are your emotions talking to you, letting you know something needs to be addressed. For example, if you're in the workplace and every time a certain person is in a meeting and they sit next to you and you immediately tighten up, your jaw clenches, or there's some physical cue, that is simply your emotions letting you know of the discomfort that you have. So rather than just accept this feeling without knowing why, identify. This person makes me feel boom, fill in the blank. And just knowing that in the moment, that emotion you're feeling, it's an indicator to you. So what do you need to do to get through this moment? Do you need to take a couple of deep breaths? Do you need to just take that moment to get your mind right? Because you've heard the saying, when you know better, you do better. It's the same with our emotions. When you know that you feel this way, you then can begin to regulate yourself and your emotion in this moment. Now, what that looks like for you is different for every person. But what's most important is that you do this body scan of these physical cues that your emotions are indicating, and then you create the plan in the moment, understanding why you feel that way. The next practical strategy to help you identify your emotions is mindful observation. Recall earlier, I told you our emotions have a purpose, and one of the purpose is to guide our thoughts. Your thoughts and beliefs can influence your emotional state. Pay attention to the stories that you're creating for yourself, these narratives that you create. Check in with yourself. Check in with those thoughts. This simply helps you create a greater self-awareness of your emotional state. I can give you an example that someone shared with me. There was someone, this is a workplace example. There was someone who came to work. They never spoke when they entered a room. Many of us were raised that when you enter a room, you speak. And so because this person never spoke when they entered the room, the other person, the one I'm having the conversation with, shared they would just get angry. So every time they saw this person, whenever they were in the room or interacted, passed them in the hallway, they felt this way. They felt some kind of way. And through observation, what they realized is when they saw this person, the thought they had is, they are so rude. But in their thoughts, they begin to get physical cues, like they tighten up, scrunch up their face, and just in disgust, like, ugh. That's doing something to them internal. But what they then realized after conversation, Somehow it came up later. I don't recall the details right now, but the outcome was that person was raised differently. They didn't speak when they entered into a room. So there really was no reason that they were not speaking, because initially the person was thinking, I haven't done anything to them. I don't know why they're speaking or not speaking to me. And the point of that story is for you to get in tune with your thoughts and beliefs and really consider what are the narratives that you are creating. This individual created that whole narrative that the person didn't like them, they didn't understand why, so therefore they're having these physical cues, but that was not the situation. And as you are getting in tune with your thoughts, just consider what are the feelings that are attached with those thoughts, and start with using the 5 primary feelings: happy, sad, anger, fear, or shame. Or even if you're familiar with some of the complex emotions that extend from those, but identify that feeling to that thought. The final practical strategy to learn to identify your emotions is journaling. Keep a journal to track your emotions and reflect on your experiences. Take a moment to just jot down what happened during the day, how you felt, what was the thought, identify the emotion that was attached or in the indicator for this emotion. In this process, especially if you're new to identifying your emotions, consider where were you, who was there, what was the situation, what triggered this emotion. This type of self-reflection is foundational and critical to begin to learn to identify your emotions, because the outcome, what you want to achieve, is to begin to recognize and acknowledge your emotions so that you're able to regulate them appropriately. Now you may take these practical strategies and do them more often, and as you are equipping yourself and learning, your actual acknowledgement and regulation of emotions will become a part of your life. It'll be a lifestyle. Just like you don't think when you walk one foot in front of the other, you don't think, hey, I need to breathe. You can actually get to the point where you are immediately able to acknowledge how you're feeling, what it's attached to, and the regulation strategy that you need to take. Remember, learning to identify your emotions is a journey. It takes time and practice, but it is a valuable life skill. Cultivating your emotional awareness is critical to creating the life that you desire. But what I would like for you to do is put on your notifications, and don't be stingy. If you know someone else who you think anything on my channel benefits, share this with them. And of course, I want you to go ahead and like and subscribe. Thank you. See you next time.